Good morning and welcome to another episode of Mr. Long Island's Search for Truth and Beauty. My name is Michael Watt, aka Mr. Long Island, and this week we are joined by Suffolk County Legislator Monica Martinez and Suffolk County business owner and child care expert Kathy Liguori. And the issue we're going to discuss today is child care in Suffolk County and why it's a good investment for the region. So ladies, thank you very much for joining us this morning. But first, as we start off every week, we discuss something near and dear to every Long Islander's heart, the best place to buy pizza on Long Island. And the criteria is, if you had friends coming in from out of town, where would you take them? And the reason we discussed it, something I discovered years ago, as diverse an economy, as diverse a region as Long Island is, the one thing that every town in Long Island has in common is a good pizza place, or at least a pizza place. And every Long Islander has a strong opinion about pizza. So we're in the process of developing this really cool database of great pizza on Long Island. So Legislator Martinez, where's your favorite place to take somebody for pizza?
I would have to say Bono's Pizza.
Bono's Pizza's where?
It's on Brentwood Road in Bayshore.
Okay.
It's delicious. We have a lot of, they actually deliver to a lot of our schools in the area, which is something that I appreciate as well.
Okay.
And the kids love it. If someone was to come from the neighborhood, from different neighborhoods, that's where I would take them.
So you want to show off Long Island, you bring them to Bono's?
Yes.
Okay.
I will bring them definitely to my district, even better. You know, it just happens to be that we have a nice pizza place there too.
Okay, that's terrific. And Kathy, what have you come up with?
Well, I have two. My favorite place for flatbread pizza is the Sonoma Grill in Holtzville.
Okay.
And for regular Neapolitan pizza, it would be Capio's in Middle Island.
Capio's in Middle Island. Where in Middle Island?
Right on Middle Country Road. I think it's 1225 Middle Country Road.
And the flatbread pizza, that's just a flatbread instead of traditional crust?
Right, like a margarita type of pizza.
Okay, terrific. So we got 3 more pizza places to add to the collection. That's terrific. So again, thank you very much for joining us. And last month you released a report. Now, you're the chairwoman of the Suffolk County Legislature's Human Services. And you issued a report on child care in Suffolk County. You did a whole study. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the report that was issued?
Well, the child care and the Welfare to Work Commission is the one who released the report. I just came on board, being newly elected and newly chair to the Human Services Commission. And the last 6 months that I've been working with them, they're just phenomenal people. And as an educator by profession, I hold this dear to my heart, only because I've taught from the ages of high school, which is 15 to 18.
Okay.
And you see the difference. You see a discrepancy from a child who received child care and early education, early intervention, and those that did not.
Okay, so when you get them a little further into the process, and you can see the difference when you first encounter these students.
Yes, and then so I taught for 10 years, and then I was an administrator for 4 at a middle school. And even at that age, you see a difference between those who did receive early child care or early education to those that did not. The skills are learned at a younger age.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit. Now, Kathy, you own a couple of child care centers in Suffolk County. You've been actively involved in advocating for child care issues. It's obviously so much more than just somebody watching your kid for a couple of hours a day. Let's talk a little bit about the child care, and then I want to get into why it's so important to the region that investments be made in child care. But walk us through child care and what's involved.
Well, when children are born, from birth to age 5, most of all the brain development takes place. 85% of the brain development actually takes place during that time. And 95% of the investment from the federal government is on education. So
5 and up.
5 and up. So it's very important for that, a little bit of that to change. However, all of that early learning, that development, if you think about a newborn child and just what they are able to do within the first year of their life and their growth and development is phenomenal. That's something that parents can really embrace and see that specifically. But that development continues on, and it's very important that the children from the ages of of 2 and 3 and 4 and 5, they learn all of their boundaries and be exposed to the things, those meaningful, teachable moments of their everyday life, and as they learn through play and what that means, whether it's sharing or socializing, their independence. Even nap time is a social, independent stage of development that it's very important that they learn that, because that helps them with their separation anxiety as well.
And in a child care center, you have trained personnel, workers, staffers who are trained to make sure that almost everything that child does is done for a reason, and there's structure and there's learning experiences there.
That's right. And it doesn't stop there. There's New York State regulations that tell us how many children we have to have in our care, and based on the square footage of our facilities, and how many employees must be there to care for the children as well as educate them. And there's a whole criterion of the educational expertise that they must have. We have to have a planned curriculum. The state puts out the core body of knowledge, which is a true basis for early childhood education, that states what the child care providers should follow. So that way, not only, child care is not babysitting.
Right.
And
I think that's a
that's
really
the
key
biggest
thing. Yeah.
misnomer.
Yeah, and it ties, not only is important to know just from the parenting standpoint of, when the parent or parents make that selection process, you don't want to just drop your kid off somewhere where they're going to plop in front of a TV for 4 hours. But it's also from the community standpoint, the value that they're learning, and especially, as you said, because the learning that they're doing between 0 and 5 is so key. Let's talk a little bit about that. So the child care is crucial. And is there a perception, though, that it's really just babysitting and it's an issue for a mom or a family, or it's something the government doesn't necessarily get involved in? Let's talk a little bit about what the government should be doing, or how child care should be supported in the region.
Well, I think there definitely is a misperception and or misconception that a child care is just to care your child. But I also think there are many child care buildings or establishments that are not regulated by the state, and I think those are the ones that that people argue, that why I'm just sending my child because I do need a babysitter.
Okay.
And but I think as a government, we need to invest in our early childhood. Okay, just like what just mentioned before, 85% of our children's brain development is taking place between the ages of birth and 5, and we forget that. That's so crucial, because then now you expect the child to enter kindergarten, and you would hope that they have the fundamentals at least, the ABCs, the 1, 2, 3s as soon as they're coming into kindergarten. But and you can see the delay in learning, because now you have to catch up to a child who had that coming in. And but I think we need to invest more money. I think it's very important that we invest in our future, and our future are our kids.
Was that the gist of the report that was released last month, or can you talk to us a little bit about that report and what your findings were? Tell us how you came about the findings and what the findings were.
Well, the report truly is an academic piece of information that any elected official can use as a basis for what is going on with childcare. What are the services that are out there? What is offered? How much does it cost? What are the barriers? It touches on special education that is a very difficult process for parents to go through. And there's a certain criterion for special education services that some of the children that really need it, they don't meet the criteria, so they don't get the services. So we make recommendations for changes toward that. We pretty much unfold that childcare as an industry is a patchwork of silos of all different services and government funding, that if we put it all together and where we recommend an early learning and childcare commission or committee run by the Suffolk County Legislature, that they are the overseers. They are the ones that will have the power to call in the people and the experts to come and discuss the changes that need to be made. As an example, the federal child care block grant monies that help to pay for child care services for people that are income eligible or children that are in the Child Protective Service system. If these families are income eligible, they pay their pro rata share. It's a subsidy while they're working. So this is just not a free service. They're paying their share, they're paying taxes for it. But it's just enough so that it helps them, helps to subsidize their child care payments. Similar to, a scholarship that you receive for college. But what happens is that for some of those families, it doesn't meet their criteria. They could be $8 over. We talk about that in the report. A woman lost her child care subsidy entirely because she suddenly went $8 over.
Wow.
So we recommend a transition and a tiered dollar system, or a plan to help them transition out of it, not just totally drop them off because they lose their child care, then they completely revert back onto public assistance, and that's just, it's counterproductive.
Well, that's a great segue into why it's important to the region. Every region to be sustainable needs a workforce, and for better or for worse, moms and dads have to be involved. Long Island is definitely a two-income family region, so both parents have to be working outside the home, but the companies also need the workers. And you talk about the child care, if you have employees who have children, if those children are being provided for, you're going to have a much more productive employee. So let's talk a little bit about why it's important that we make this investment, and why, we talk about government, should the business community also be investing? And when you talk about investing, what kind of money are we talking about, and where is it going to come from?
Well, and also in the report that was released, some of the recommendations that were made to the legislature was having private entities come in, such as businesses, and create a fund where we can secure certain fundings for childcare. So we have discussed that. Another recommendation was having an oversight committee from the legislature, and I am happy that I'm on because I get it. I understand. And coming, like I said before, as an educator, I understand. So that's why when I was working with them and the suggestions that were being made, it made sense, because the only way you know it if you're in it. So somebody may not understand, well, why do we need childcare for it? It's it could be just a babysitting, but it's not that. It is that now we have both parents having to work.
Right.
Do you know that even as an educator myself, I had children stay home because they had to care for their sibling because mom and dad had to go to work and they couldn't find childcare for that day. So now we have our students who are missing out on their own education because they need to at this point would be babysit.
Right.
So I think, the recommendations that were done by the commission is very important. The Child Care Council is that we need to find money. We need to invest in our future. We need to look at our budget. I know we're tight, but there's certain things that we need to look at and scrutinize and see if it's priority or not. Education to me is priority, and we have to go look and we have to find that money. We have to find that grant. The state has to give more money as well. I know there's a discrepancy between Nassau and Suffolk, how Nassau got more money than we did. And that's because also Nassau is investing more in their children.
Is that Nassau County invested more, and I guess the federal program matched it because the county put in more money, the federal government put in more money?
Yes.
Well, not
The
necessarily. There's a certain allocation. They use a fiscally responsible methodology to, as they say, to distribute the funds to the local district. So it's money provided by the federal government, passed to the state, and then the state passes it through to the local county districts. And it's all based on past claims. So when we, in 2008, when our country went through the Great Recession, there were a lot of cutbacks, there were a lot of losses of monies, and then Suffolk County also received, just as any other district did, the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act stimulus money. And with that money, we were allowed to create jobs. So those jobs created childcare slots so those
Okay.
people could go to work. And because that money was temporary, even though it created jobs and people went to work through it and it boosted our economy in that manner, our child care program was, in a sense, penalized because it was temporary money.
Okay.
So the allocation formula did not take those dollars, which were almost over 2 years, $3.5 million, that went against our claims. And every year, the allocation formula changes because you have a new budget. But I have to say that I think in the last 8 years, the formula has changed 6 times.
Wow.
So it's very difficult for anyone to run a business, no less a county government, to try to forecast how they're going to spend the money when the rules of the game are changed in mid-play.
Wow.
The other dilemma is that the federal government has their own budget year, the state has their own budget year, and our county has a budget year.
Let me
So-
guess, they don't line up.
They don't. They lag six
They
months
don't.
behind
Oh,
each other.
Wow.
So it's a real challenge. But the biggest challenge of that is, while the state will claim that the allocation formula works well for everyone, every other district, why not just Suffolk County, is that Suffolk County, the cost of living here is so much greater than other districts, and we can compare ourselves to Nassau, but Nassau got $9 million of an increase this year, where we only got $600,000.
Wow.
So the cost of living in Nassau is comparable
Right.
to Suffolk
You would
County,
think there would be more of a balance.
but the children are no less worthy
Right.
of receiving that opportunity for their early childhood education. So then we could talk about pre-K, universal pre-kindergarten, as that
Right.
comes into play. So 82% of the districts did not apply for full-day universal pre-K this year because they are required to spend that money first before they will get reimbursed by the state. And they only released the request for proposals and gave them the opportunity to submit their consolidated plans in the beginning of June. They had June 16th to apply.
Wow.
How can that happen?
Yeah.
So the state knew that with this year, those districts that will apply can get the money, but they knew that, well, they gave the $340 million to New York City for their UPK. We heard all about that in the media. The rest of the state got $40 million, and it
Wow.
really doesn't seem like there's that share, that equal share to make it happen, but obviously there wasn't enough time to apply. And how does that help working parents? And speaking of which, when you have the child care block grant, that's a silo in the patchwork that pays for that early childhood education, including children that are in pre-kindergarten. Those programs that have a complete educational sound program for those children for years and have been doing very well, that money, none of the districts, the local school districts, none of the community-based organizations actually that the school districts work with,
Right.
the majority of them do not accept the subsidy. So how do you have a middle-income family or teetering low-income family that is eligible for this subsidy, child care subsidy? They can then utilize the UPK if they had a program that would accept the block grant. So you marry the funds together.
Right.
When you pay the rent when you're married, it's so much easier to pay the bills.
Right.
If we were able to have a partnership with the districts, and that's one of the recommendations that we have in here, to put a pilot together, that a school district will pilot with a program that is contracted with the county, that is approved with their curriculum, that will be able to provide a before care program before the children get to UPK, provide the UPK, and then have the aftercare program so that parents can actually work. They also might have a younger sibling that attends the child care program as well. So it's a better use of the money as opposed to the walking that line of this is the rule and this is the way, and if you don't meet the criteria, we're sorry.
Well, that's mind-boggling what you have to go through to make this happen, and especially in light of how important it is. You know, it almost would seem like a no-brainer. You're talking about the future of this country, the future of the region. So just to kind of recap, you know, childcare, proper childcare, not just plopping a kid in front of the TV or just having them in a home somewhere, is really important for that child's development. But it also enables, the long term is that child is better raised and more capable of dealing with the challenges that life has to offer. That's the long term. The short term is you have parents who can be more productive at work because they know their child is being well cared for.
I like to call that presenteeism in the workplace.
Right.
When they have peace of mind, knowing that their child is being well taken care of, that they can trust, your show speaks about truth, when they can trust the program and the provider, that gives them that peace of mind, and they can be present at work. They don't have that quality and they're worried about their child, they are not at their workstation thinking about the work or the project, the engineering, or whatever it is that they're doing. Their mind is on their child.
And the model, Legislator Martinez, you had mentioned before that, you know, you start, kindergarten starts at 5. I mean, the model was the government would start educating the child at 5, but now the reality is you're really much better off starting at the newborn stage.
Well, look, now with the ever-changing state standards, okay, with Common Core, okay, what are we trying to prepare our kids for but college and career? Okay, we want them college and career ready. That's the whole premise of Common Core. So we can't begin, okay, at a later, age in educating our children. They need to begin young. The fundamentals are taught at a young age. When do you begin to speak? You don't begin to speak at the age of 5.
Right.
You begin the basic skills at the 1, 2. You're already saying a couple of you're already making full sentences.
Right.
So if we want our children to, one, stay on the island, 2, benefit our region economically, and we need to start from young. We need to make sure that we meet those New York State standards. And in terms of allocating money, we see it all, even though 95%, yes, goes from 5 to, high school, okay? But even in that allocation of money, it's not even equitable. Right. Because you have certain districts that are less populated getting more money than those districts that have a high population of students getting less money. And then, unfortunately, you get budget cuts, and then you're losing teachers. But yeah, you're expected to teach these children. You're expected to, you expect these children to go on to college. You expect them to become, professionals and to stay on the island. But how do you expect that to happen when there is no money for that to happen? And look, is there money out there? Yeah. We just have to find it. And now with the child care block grant, and granted, we did receive more money this year, now giving the county the ability for 400 more families to be serviced this year. And our county exec just announced that 400 more families will be serviced with child care, but still not enough. That's only 400 families when we have thousands of families that need assistance.
And you hear a lot of talk now about investing in the infrastructure, replacing our bridges, fixing our roadways. Human capital is also an important part of the infrastructure, and this would really be an investment. You talked before about a cost. It's not really a cost, it's an investment. And if we're going to maintain Long Island's vitality and sustainability, we have to make that investment. So this is a very important issue. I really appreciate both of you making yourselves available and walking us through the challenges that the child care industry faces these days, and really give us that opportunity to explain how important child care is, as opposed to just putting a kid into a babysitting and not really nurturing them in those really crucial years. So thank you very much for being with us today and walking us through the whole child care issue. Good luck with your report and finding that money. It seems to me to be a bit of a no-brainer. So
yeah, they'll be at the Human Service Committee fighting, and I welcome them, and I want them to fight, and I will speak with my colleagues and and county executive, and hopefully we can find some money for them.
Well, you need it because you need the workforce, you need the well-educated young people, because the challenge is becoming greater and greater. So again, thank you both very much. Is there a website or a phone number you want to give? Or
Yes, you could definitely contact my office at 631-873-3700.
And you're in the 9th District,
9th
Suffolk
District,
County.
which is Brentwood, Central Islip, and North Bay Shore.
Okay, but anybody in Suffolk County with
Anyone
childcare?
can call.
Great. And Kathy, you have a website or?
Yes, I do. My school's website is www.HabiTotsChildcare.com. And the Welfare to Work Commission also will have this report published onto the Suffolk County government's website. It's under the Suffolk County Legislature, under boards and commissions, and they would just have to look at the Welfare to Work Commission, and the report will be there if they want to receive
Terrific.
it.
I do have to correct my number.
Okay.
It's 853-3700.
I thought so, but I thought maybe you just tested
853,
me.
no.
Okay.
I was testing you. I was trying to make sure they...
Well, thank you very much for joining us. It's been another episode of Mr. Long Island's Search for Truth and Beauty, the internet program that looks at issues that need to be discussed and the beauty that Long Island is. There's so many great things about Long Island that make it such a great, special place to live, work, and raise a family. And this week we got a little bit of both, so that's terrific. Thank you very much, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.